Hi there, I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor and welcome to Coffee and Crypto one final time. On today's program, we'll be taking you through everything that's buzzing in the world of cryptocurrency. Two things mostly. One, on these new ad norms that have actually come in. What does it say about advertisement moving forward when it comes to crypto? Remember the whole IPL controversy and how and what it did to crypto advertisements? That is going to be our topic number one. Also, a very interesting debate has cropped up in the space of crypto, and that is crypto and India's brain drain along with it. Are companies, our best of the minds on crypto actually leaving India? If yes, why? We'll decode all of that. First up, let's get some coffee. The world is an unsettled place at the moment, my friends, but the good news at the moment in terms of crypto, not the markets, yes, they're all bleeding and perhaps will remain so for some time, but it is some clarity that has come in on advertisements. Let's talk about that first. For a few months now, advertisements on crypto exchanges have flooded TV screens, and keeping investors' interest in mind, the Advertising Standards Council of India, which is sort of a self-governing body, you can take them as an advertising watchdog as well, have said that all ads for what are now called virtual digital assets, or VDA, as was defined by the finance minister in the bill as well, in the budget as well, should put disclaimers. Now, so gone are the days when Bollywood stars like Ayushmann Khurrana or Ranveer Singh could just freely urge you to spend your money on crypto assets without highlighting the risks tied to such products. India's top advertising watchdog has now come up with a policy on this. They are basically going on to say that there will be a detailed follow-up on how things work. So no longer can people just come out and say that you can invest in crypto and it's a way to make quick buck. There will be disclaimers put out in print advertisements, also in digital advertisements. Time has been defined as well. And this is said to be a huge shift in which India will look at advertisements. Remember, all of this is sort of rolling back from the time when the Prime Minister started by saying that there is a lot that needs to be done to curb expectations, a lot to be done to ensure that crypto is not landing up in hands which do not understand the system very, very clearly. So that is the focus today, and let's introduce our guests on segment one of the program. Joining us today is going to be Siddharth Sogani. Also with us is Ajit Khurrana, both very regular on the program. We'll be joined in a moment by Dr. Arunasha as well. Siddharth, let me begin with you first. How did you take the news of these disclaimers coming in? We've been putting out disclaimers right from the very beginning as responsible people talking about cryptocurrency. But which way do you see this going? Also, a lot of debate going on yes, disclaimers are needed. But is it going to make ads more expensive? And at the end of the day, people wondering, is this good news? Is this bad news? How exactly are you reading it?
I mean, see, crypto is, you have to explain the entire thing properly, right? So I think that's a good way to do it. Any disclaimers which are coming in should be given enough importance, and the voice out. I mean, it should not be a very hurried disclaimer. So that way, it's a very good thing. But I still think that that will make things expensive for the companies, because they will have to spend more on the airtime, and even on the print advertisements, 1/5 area should be covered with disclaimers. So it's I mean, it's definitely a good thing, but they should ease it a little bit so that interesting advertisements can be made. Because when we look at the world, they are really making amazing advertisements when it comes to crypto.
Right, so it's a step in the right direction is what I'm hearing from you. But where do you see these disclaimers and those rules that have come in? And would you say it's a huge relief in a way? Because so far there was a lot of ambiguity on which way this is going. And in my understanding, perhaps taxation, we're still waiting in for a regulation clearly on this front, and that is going to clear the air on everything. But with taxation coming in, there is a certain ease in the system on adoption of crypto ads?
See, it's I won't say disadvantage, but the innovation and advertisement, especially when it comes to crypto, like you see the international exchanges, crypto.com or you see FTX, they are making amazing and really informative advertisements with a very clear, thoughtful message, right? So when you restrict advertisements with disclaimers and some things which may be important to know in order to understand the concept of this unprecedented technology, I believe it slows down the entire process. I mean, that's the gist of it.
Right, it does slow down the process, but where do you see, I'm trying to understand, disclaimers? A common man reading this would be, what kind of disclaimer is this? What kind of messaging are we seeing as well? And is this a sort of a way for the government to give you a messaging here? Are these the tobacco kind of disclaimers or mutual fund kind of disclaimers? Where, in what realm does this really fall?
So yeah, we when the advertisement disclaimer came in, we keep making internal reports for our assessment. So we just noticed that the international exchanges like FTX, they spent $135 million on a 19-year deal, $210 million on naming rights, and they have brand ambassadors like Matt Damon and Tom Brady. So we have a long way to go. I mean, their one deal is our entire year spent with all the exchanges put together. So we have a long scope to improve our advertising, budgets.
You're right. You're right. But I think it's IPL really sort of got everybody's attention to the kind of advertisement that was being made as well, and so important. Last question really, Siddharth, on the idea here is quite noble, right? The Prime Minister has talked about it. We're talking about this on a day when Supreme Court is looking into a case of Bitcoin scam, and they're looking at redefining how this entire space works as well. So very important for not just government to enforce these disclaimers, but ads to be made in a more conscious way.
Definitely, advertisements and disclaimers do make the viewer aware that this is something to do with risks, right? So, but that's a mere formality, I mean, it's a way where government secures and does the needful. But a lot of people getting into the crypto space, they don't really care about the disclaimers, right? There should be more emphasis on what kind of ads are being made, how informative and educational those ads are. So the focus should be there and not on the disclaimers, because you never hear the disclaimer what it is saying, but you see what is happening in the advertisement. So I believe, I mean, disclaimer is a mere formality, but there should be something which says that the advertisement should be educational, which makes the viewer aware about the risks involved in this space.
Absolutely. Thanks, Siddharth, so much for your insight on that. Let me go to somebody who also has another very good insight on ads. It's Dr. Aruna Sharma back with us on the program. Always lovely to have you, ma'am. You've had a lot to say about advertisements, the way they've been going on. Your first thoughts on how are you seeing the advertising watchdog coming out with these guidelines?
I look at it from 3 points of view. There was a wonderful advertisement which all exchanges had put together before there was a ban on the advertisement, telling that they follow the KYC and they check it and they have a transparent methods, etc. All the apprehensions were addressed. So that kind of advertisement is one set of advertisement. The second set of advertisement which government is now telling is more like a disclaimer, is a protection that it's a informed, if the investor will not be backed by any legal claims in case it incurs a loss.
Risky involvement, right? That's what it says. Government wants these terms to be used very clearly.
Very right. And the third, which is more important, is the advertisement should bring out not high claims or what has been very rightly said, but then they should inform what actually this crypto business is. That should also come up. So this disclaimer kind of a thing will come like a fine print below, which half the people can't read. But then it should not be like that. It should not be like that. That care has to be taken while designing the advertisement. So there are no tall claims, but equally important to inform the investors that you are not protected in case you incur a loss, and you are entering into a zone of investment into your portfolio, which is high risky and not yet regulated. Right.
So those terms have come. For me, that was the biggest catch, that those terms have been defined very clearly by the council as well. Ajit, in your view, the counter argument to this really is the fact that crypto is a global community. It's not defined by governments and national lines. We're talking about this in the times of war, of course, but we are talking about this in times when this is a truly global phenomena. How does disclaimers really add on, or do you think what more really needs to be done? Does it serve the purpose? One needs to understand that.
So, since Siddharth and Aruna ji have talked at length about disclaimers, I will try to broaden it to the entire guidelines, because disclaimer is just one part. In fact, the first few lines of the guidelines, there are other things about what words you can use, what implications you can make, how you compute returns, and the fact that you cannot compute returns if they are less than a year, etc. On the whole, very positive. Disclaimers probably don't work, otherwise fewer people will be smoking. But I still feel that the overall guidelines, some part of it is funny, where they say that you cannot claim that cryptocurrency is a cure for personality disorder. If you don't believe me, go and read that. It actually says that in the guideline. Okay. In fact, earlier today, I asked the council on Twitter whether these guidelines apply to ads as it's made out to be. What if people players put it on their own website or their own social media or their email? They said literally everything.
Or influencers like you, do you come under the radar?
I think that everybody should come under this radar. On the whole, I must say that while several players have been quite responsible in the way they have advertised, but there are some who are just so embarrassingly obnoxious that on the whole, great step forward for the industry. It may not discourage people in the way it is meant to be, because the cigarette disclaimer says you take cigarettes, you get cancer, you probably die. But the mutual fund disclaimer is very nice, and it says, past performance is not indicative and name of the scheme is not indicative. This is somewhere in between those two, because it's such a high risk. Agreed. It also says if you lose money, nobody might be able to help you, which is not completely true, because India has Consumer Protection Act, we have the police, we have the Criminal Procedure Code. So I think it has been slightly harsher than expected, but on the whole, much better having it than not having it.
Very wise words there, Ajit, indeed. Aruna ma'am, your closing thoughts. If the government is listening in, Ad Council is listening to you right now, what words of wisdom do you have for them?
Not words of wisdom, but having a deep dive in the sector, trying to understand how it is operating. I will like to say rightly that when you are putting a disclaimer, the idea is to inform the citizen. And when they are saying there is no claim, the government is saying that like in bank account, you have a protection of 5 lakhs in case the bank becomes red. Nothing of that sort is coming here, which is equally true for the share market and mutual funds.
True.
So that angle has to come out very clearly to the investor to understand that you don't have that protection at all when you are indulging into this. And it's more a step towards making the investor more informative, which was one of the concerns of the RBI, that people are just heading for it, thinking for quick gains without understanding the risk factors. So maybe it's a step towards it. So one should take it that way. So I will say, yes, fine, it is good. At least now they are allowing them to put an advertisement. So it's a step forward. How wisely it is used, how correctly in spirit it is used is to be watched, so that they don't fault on those lines.
That's right. But if you look at the international standards there, from Grand Prix to Wimbledon, everywhere, cryptos everywhere, and how does one really get eyeballs and sort of restrictions and all of that awareness happening? Well, that's going to be an interesting space to watch out for. For the moment, thank you both for joining us on that segment. We're going to slip into a break. Coming up on the other side, remember we talked about the crypto brain drain. What's that? Stay tuned if you want to know. welcome back. Is there a crypto brain drain happening? Well, India's crypto talent has been swanning out of the country for years owing to regulatory uncertainty, government's recent decision on taxation as well, which a lot of people thought was very, very harsh, 30% plus one. All of this, many say, is leading to a brain drain. Now, according to some reports, 30 to 50 Indian crypto and blockchain entrepreneurs run their businesses out of places like Dubai and Singapore. One of these Indian, mind you. Now, the flight of talent can be tracked back to 2018 when the RBI had first imposed a ban. Zeppay, one of the largest Indian exchanges at that time, had shuttered operations and moved to Singapore. However, it has resumed services now that the RBI ban is gone, and there is more, perhaps, not if clarity, at least a direction in which, Indian crypto community is expanding. New tax rules, they didn't help it either. But is taxation the reason enough for these crypto exchanges, for these big players who can make so much of difference even inside India, to actually look at countries offshore? That is something that we will be debating. Let me just bring in our guest now and straight away dive into our questions. Joining us is Sharat Chandra and also Rishi Manga. Let me just begin with Sharat. Sharat, why do you think destinations like Dubai and Singapore are, even though more expensive to set up base there, are turning out to be so much more popular than India?
Right. So I think there's an element of regulatory or legal certainty which is there in geographies like Dubai, where Dubai World Trade Center Authority, they have announced that they will be rolling out licenses for crypto exchanges, right? So they're trying to create a vibrant ecosystem where startups or companies across the globe can start setting up business there. So it's like inviting both talent as well as investment into Dubai. So that's a very, very progressive move. Now, as you rightly stated, this seems more like a brain drain 2.0, an unpleasant deja vu, if I can use that term, right? Because this is like we're driving our talent outside India. And if we want to leapfrog, I mean, if India wants to leapfrog to be the next leader in Web 3.0 era, we need to have the right regulation, right policy regulations as far as taxation also is concerned, right? So that we don't drive our talent outside, right?
Rishi, comment on the fact that what does it mean for investors in India who might or might not be invested in exchanges that are registered abroad?
So basically, no matter which exchange you use, if your PAN card is added on the exchange, you will have paid taxes, no matter from whichever country's exchange you're using. Well, the problem comes when you're using decentralized exchange or P2P or any other way where you will have to, government is very smart by getting in TDS, where all the transactions will be taxed.
Yes.
That's how they can track every transaction we do. No matter where we go, because of TDS, we will have to file our ITR, then we will have to pay taxes.
Right. So this is, I just want to say this again for all crypto holders in India. You will not be absolved of taxes or the liability coming from that only because your exchange is headquartered overseas. You need to give in your KYC and how things will work from there. But Sharat, then just think like an investor right now who's looking at all these options that have come up as well. What do you think should be the priority there?
I think Indian investors, if they're trading in overseas exchanges, then again, a 1% equalization levy will also apply on top of the existing 30% tax and 1% TDS, right? So I think transacting on overseas exchanges is not a profitable decision, I would say.
I see. And Rishi, your thought on what this means for crypto community here? I'm seeing the biggest talent when it comes to crypto is emerging out of India. And like we talked about how India almost missed the bus in Web 2.0. With Web 3, that shouldn't be the case. Sharat, do you want to answer that?
Sure. I think that's where the government has to kind of rationalize the current tax, because if you're looking at Web 3.0, metaverse, right? So, and tokenization is a key element in these two spheres, right? So if you're putting obnoxious tax of 30%, a very high tax, right? So how would entrepreneurs or technologists will start and build in metaverse, right? So, and since the Republic Day Parade talked about Vedas to metaverse, how do we ensure that we still have a prominent position in metaverse if we still keep on having high tax rates with respect to tokenization of assets, right? So I think we need to have a balanced view, rationalized taxes. That's the only way we can move forward.
And I think also get in regulation as soon as possible. You know, sort of don't let it be in the realm of ambiguity. Bring in a regulation that clears the air on things with, you know, with whatever taxation slabs are there. That will depend on people's risk appetite, but that needs to come in as well. We'll leave our viewers with that. Thanks so much for joining us, Sharath. With that, well, also with that, it's time to wrap today's episode of Coffee and Crypto. Also time to say goodbye one final time to all of you. Not just goodbye for the program, also goodbye for me on CC and NDTV. It's been lovely bringing you this program. We've loved the feedback, your never-ending sort of questions that come in as well. And honestly, it's been a fascinating, fascinating journey. And the journey will go on, but perhaps we'll see you some other place, some other time. Bye for now. Take care.